Hi, I'm Ron Lawson. This is Dirtbike Magazine, and today we have something really special. This is the very first Rieju MR Pro 300i in the US. It was uncrated in Texas last week by Mark, Gary, and the guys at Central Power Sports Distributing, and then Geoff Aaron hauled it out to California to give us a chance to check it out and ride it. And yes, that's the same Geoff Aaron with the 10 trials championships, the stunt shows, and all the enduro cross success. We got to shoot photos and videos of him, and then he handed the bike over to us. First of all, we know that Rieju isn't a household name, but it should be. This is an aggressive Spanish company that is now on the cutting edge of two-stroke technology. They've already been very successful in hard enduro, super enduro, and enduro cross. How do you pronounce it? Geoff says that even in Spain, they pronounce it differently in different regions. In some parts, they pronounce the soft J as in Rieju. In others, it's pronounced Rieju. Regardless of how you say it, this is a very sophisticated two-stroke. It has a brand new motor with an electronic power valve, a counterbalancer, a diaphragm clutch, and throttle body fuel injection. This isn't a motor made by anyone else. It's not a gas, KTM, Yamaha, or anything other than a Rieju. And it's been several years in development. There is a connection to the pre-2018 gas motorcycles that were manufactured by Torat in Girona, Spain. When KTM's parent company, Pereira Mobility, acquired the gas brand, the pre-existing off-road models under that name were rebranded as Rieju. Until that point, those guys had only made small displacement two-strokes for the European market. It was the ultimate jumpstart into the serious off-road world. The bike had a brand new chassis at the time, although the motor went back almost 20 years. So, this new motor was in the plan from the very start. The frame is more or less unchanged for 2025. You can see it has some KTM influence with a central steel backbone and even a KTM-like layout. The suspension is KYB, and most of the parts are from very familiar European sources. It's still manufactured in that same plant that originally made gas off-road bikes, although there is a new Rieju factory in the works. This particular bike is the MR Pro 300i, which is the top of the line. It has a number of upgrades like a radiator fan, X-Trig triple clamps, premium suspension components, and various extras. It sells for $11,399, whereas the standard model is $1,000 less. The first thing that hits you when you ride the new bike is how refined it is. There's very little vibration, very little engine noise. It starts easily, runs crisply, and everything feels very mainstream. The clutch has a super light pull with an excellent feel. If Honda were going to get back into the two-stroke business, this is how we imagine their bikes would feel. It's simply not what you expect when you're dealing with such a small company. We already knew that the chassis was very good from our previous experiences with last year's MR Pro 300. It's a stable bike, especially against a backdrop of other current dirt bikes that have an increasing amount of supercross influence. By the same token, it's easy to manhandle in tight terrain because it's very narrow and steering is light. It is still a little heavy. On our scale, it was 245 pounds after we drained the fuel. That's what it was last year, so the new motor didn't add anything despite the EFI and the fuel pump. And some of that weight can be attributed to the extra equipment on the Pro Edition. The KYB suspension is set up for hard off-road riding or racing at an aggressive clip. We rode mostly tight trails in first and second gear where it felt firm overall, but not at all harsh. All that we expected. But it's the new motor that's a real surprise. It's outstanding. It has 3 maps available on the handlebar, and the most aggressive mode, which is signified by one flash of the LED light, it has great power from bottom to top. Obviously, being a 300 two-stroke brings certain expectations. It has to run well down low and be extremely reluctant to stall. Job done in that department. You can lug the bike down to an idle and then whack open the throttle and the motor responds without complaint. The power delivery is smooth and immediate, but not perfectly linear. It runs like a trials bike on the very bottom with that instant torque, and then gets a second wind up on top, where it runs like a two-stroke MX bike. In terms of outright power, it is softer on top than a new KTM 300 SX. But it will outpull a stock Yamaha YZ250. There are 2 other maps available on the handlebar, and they mostly affect performance from the middle to the top. Presumably, the ECU is altering power valve operation, as well as spark advance and fuel mixture. In the mildest map, we understand the power valve doesn't use its full throw. We know that software exists to alter these parameters right now, but we don't yet know how accessible it will be for the end user. We only had access to the 300i for a short time, but it left us wanting more. It seems like the world as a whole is rediscovering the 300 two-stroke, and this particular bike is so well executed. It makes us optimistic about the direction of dirt bikes in general. So check back with us to see what's next. Go to dirtbikemagazine.com or pick us up on the newsstand. And please subscribe. Thanks for watching.